The listening post floated quietly on the edge of known space. It was a lonely place, manned by only a small group of people. Their task was simple: watch the stars, listen to signals, and report anything unusual. Most days were dull. Space was wide, empty, and silent. The crew often joked that the machines did most of the work while they only pressed buttons. But this night was different. Myra sat in front of her console, sipping a warm drink. Her screen flickered as numbers shifted in strange patterns. She frowned and tapped the display again. The signal was faint, almost too faint to notice, but it repeated at regular intervals. It was not the random noise of background radiation. It had structure. "Ravi, come here," she called. Ravi walked over, rubbing his tired eyes. He had been half asleep, but the tone in Myra's voice made him alert. He leaned over the console and studied the pattern. At first, it looked like nothing more than static. Then the rhythm became clear. A slow pulse, then silence, then another pulse. "That is not natural," Ravi said quietly. Myra nodded. "It's coming from sector K17, right at the edge. Should I flag it?" Before Ravi could answer, the commander of the station entered the room. His name was Darren, a man with a calm face but sharp eyes. He had heard enough from the hallway. "Flag it," Darren said. "And keep recording. No one touches the signal until I say so." The room grew silent as the signal continued. It was faint, but the pattern never broke. Like a heartbeat in the dark, it kept calling from the far side of the galaxy. The next morning, the Central Fleet received the report. Normally, signals like this were passed to research teams, who filed them away as possible anomalies. But this one was different. The rhythm was too steady, the source too distant, and the energy too strange to ignore. Within hours, a small exploration ship was dispatched. The ship was called the Horizon. It was not large, but it was fast and built for long travel. Its crew was trained for exploration, not war. They had 6 members in total: Captain Darren, Myra the signal analyst, Ravi the engineer, Lian the navigator, Tomash the medic, and Yara the systems expert. Together they had seen many strange things, but none of them could shake the unease the signal brought. When the Horizon left the station, the crew gathered in the main room. The signal played through the speakers, a steady pulse that seemed to echo like a slow drum beat. No one spoke for several moments. "It feels alive," Yara finally said. "It feels wrong," Lian added. Captain Darren raised a hand. "We are explorers. Not dreamers, not children afraid of shadows. We will investigate, we will learn, and we will return. Keep your focus." The Horizon slipped into the dark, engines humming softly. The stars thinned as they moved closer to the galactic edge. The signal grew stronger, and soon it was clear it was not a broadcast meant to be heard. It was more like a trail, a beacon left behind. Myra worked day and night, tracing the faint changes in the rhythm. She discovered that the pulses shifted slightly depending on direction. It was as if the signal was pointing somewhere deeper, pulling them forward. One evening, Ravi visited her at the console. "You look tired," he said. "I cannot stop," Myra replied. Her eyes stayed fixed on the screen. "It feels like someone is leading us. Like they want us to follow." Ravi crossed his arms. "And what if it is a trap?" Myra glanced at him. "Then we are walking straight into it." Silence fell between them. Neither spoke the fear that hung in the air. 3 weeks passed as the Horizon pushed deeper. The region around them grew darker. Stars thinned, replaced by vast stretches of empty black. Navigation became difficult. Lian often muttered to herself, double-checking the charts. She said the void felt unnatural, as if space itself was trying to hide something. One night, alarms rang across the ship. Yara shouted from the system's deck. Power surge. Something just brushed our sensors. The crew rushed to their stations. On the screens, a faint shape flickered at the edge of detection. It was not clear, like a shadow half hidden by fog. Before anyone could focus on it, the shape was gone. What was that? Tomasz asked, his voice shaking. No idea, Yara said. It was there for only 3 seconds, then gone. It left a cold trail, like it sucked heat from our sensors. Captain Darren stood silent, his eyes hard. He finally spoke. It was watching us. The crew exchanged worried looks, but no one argued. The feeling of being hunted grew heavier with every passing hour. Days later, the signal changed. The steady rhythm stopped and was replaced by a different pattern, sharper and faster. Myra's hands trembled as she recorded the data. It is no longer a beacon, she said. It is a warning. What kind of warning? Leanne asked. Myra shook her head. I cannot tell. But it is not welcoming us anymore. The crew gathered again in the main room. For the first time, doubt spread across their faces. They were explorers, but explorers knew when to turn back. The edge of fear was near, and the darkness beyond whispered of dangers they had never faced before. Captain Darren looked at his team. His voice was calm, but his eyes carried the same unease they all felt. We came to learn what hides at the edge. Now we know something is out here, and it is not friendly. But we cannot turn back yet. Humanity must know the truth. The horizon moved on, deeper into the dark, following the broken trail of signals. Behind them, the stars of known space seemed to fade. Ahead, the hunters of the void waited. The horizon drifted in the silence of deep space. Its engines hummed softly, the only sound against the endless dark. The signal had stopped leading them forward, yet Captain Darren ordered the crew to hold their course. The air inside the ship felt heavy, filled with tension none of them could shake. Myra sat at her console, staring at the empty readings. She replayed the last fragments of the signal again and again, but it was only broken static now. The steady pulse that had guided them for weeks was gone. Instead, faint traces of energy drifted across her screen like ghostly footprints. Ravi leaned over her shoulder. You are still chasing shadows, he said. Myra shook her head. Not shadows. Movement. Something is out there, but it does not want us to find it. Before Ravi could reply, the lights in the command deck flickered. A soft shiver ran through the ship, as if an unseen hand had brushed across its hull. Report, Captain Darren said sharply. Yara's voice came from the system's deck. No damage. Power stable. But something just swept through our sensors again. Same cold trail as before. Leanne, the navigator, adjusted her charts. It circled us, she said. Whatever it is, it knows we are here. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. They were not alone in the dark. Hours later, Myra caught a clearer image on the sensors. Her eyes widened as the shape took form. She quickly called the others. When they gathered around, the display showed faint outlines of a structure. Not a planet, not a star, but a cluster of ships. The ships floated together like a silent pack, their hulls jagged and sharp. They did not match any known design. They gave off no normal energy readings, yet the horizon's instruments recorded their presence like shadows outlined by a dim flame. There are at least 6 of them, Myra whispered. Maybe more. They are moving together. Captain Darren studied the display with a hard expression. They look like hunters waiting for prey. Tomasz, the medic, swallowed nervously. If they are hunters, what are they hunting? No one answered. The captain ordered the horizon to move closer, but only by a small distance. The ship's lights were dimmed, and engines slowed to a quiet drift. The crew sat in silence as they watched the strange formation ahead. Minutes passed. Then hours. The unknown ships did not move directly at them, but they shifted slightly, as if circling something unseen. It was like watching predators stalk an animal hidden in tall grass. Suddenly, the horizon scanners caught a flash. Something bright and brief lit up between the hunters. It was not an explosion, but a spark of energy, followed by silence. Whatever the hunters chased had vanished again. "They are not here for us," Myra said softly. "They are here for something else." Captain Darren nodded. "Then the question is, do we keep watching or do we leave?" The crew debated. Ravi argued that they should return home with the knowledge that strange hunters lived at the edge. Yara insisted they must learn more, for what if these beings came closer to human colonies one day? Tomash reminded them that they were explorers, not soldiers, and they might not survive a direct encounter. In the end, Darren made the choice. "We stay. We watch. Humanity must know what lies beyond the stars, even if the truth is dangerous." The horizon kept its distance, drifting like a shadow behind shadows. But the hunters were not blind. Hours into their silent watch, the lights on the horizon flickered again. A chill spread through the ship, and the crew felt an unseen weight pressing down on them. On the screens, one of the hunter ships turned slowly, its jagged frame glinting faintly against the starlight. "It sees us," Leanne whispered. The ship moved with frightening grace, gliding closer without sound. Another hunter followed, then another, until 3 of them had broken from the pack. They drifted toward the horizon like sharks scenting blood. "Engines at standby," Captain Darren ordered. His voice was calm, but his grip on the console was tight. "Do not make sudden moves. Let us see what they do." The 3 hunters circled the horizon. Their shapes loomed large on the screens, but their surfaces remained dark, without windows or lights. The crew watched in silence, their hearts racing. Myra tapped her console. "They are scanning us. I can feel it. Our systems are being touched by something cold." "Shields up?" Ravi asked. "Not yet," Darren replied. "We do not want to look hostile." Suddenly, the hunters stopped circling. They aligned themselves side by side, facing the horizon directly. Then, without warning, they vanished. The crew gasped. "They are gone," Yara said, scanning her systems in disbelief. "No trace, no energy trail, nothing." Myra's screen flickered again. She leaned forward quickly. "Not gone. They are hiding. They shifted into some kind of cloak. They are still out there, watching." Silence filled the command deck. The hunters had shown themselves only to remind the humans that they could vanish at will. It was a warning. Captain Darren broke the silence. "Now we know they are real. And they know we are here." The crew sat in heavy silence as the horizon drifted once more. The feeling of being hunted grew stronger, pressing into their minds. Sleep became restless, meals went untouched, and every small noise made them jump. Late one night, Myra returned to her console, unable to rest. She played back the broken fragments of the original signal. Something about it still called to her, as if the message was not finished. Then she noticed a change. Hidden inside the last pulses was a pattern she had not seen before. It was not a beacon. It was not a warning. It was a map. When she showed it to Darren, his eyes narrowed. The map pointed farther into the dark, deeper than they had traveled so far. And the hunters were already moving in that direction. "They are chasing something," Darren said. "Something old. Something they fear." The Horizon's crew knew they faced a choice. They could turn back now and return with their story. Or they could follow the hunters deeper, risking everything to learn what even the hunters feared. The decision would shape not only their fate, but perhaps the fate of all humanity. And as the horizon drifted in silence, Unseen eyes continued to watch them from the shadows. The horizon drifted deeper into the void. The stars behind them grew faint, as if swallowed by a dark ocean. Ahead, there was almost nothing, only the faint trail left by the hunters. The crew moved in silence, each one caught in the same thought: they were being followed, maybe even tested. Captain Darren stood at the front of the command deck. His arms were folded, and his eyes were fixed on the empty screen. He knew what his crew wanted. Some wanted to turn back, to escape the shadow pressing around them. Others wanted to continue, to uncover the truth no matter the cost. But he could not show doubt. If the captain wavered, the rest would crumble. "Myra," he said. "Are you still reading the trail?" Myra's fingers danced across her console. She had not slept much in days, her face pale under the glow of her screen. "Yes, Captain. The hunters are ahead. They move in patterns, not random. They are closing in on something." "What kind of something?" Ravi asked. Myra shook her head. "I cannot tell. But they are not searching blindly. They know exactly where to go." The words hung heavy in the air. If the hunters knew their goal, then the humans were intruders in a chase they did not understand. Later that cycle, the ship shuddered. A low hum spread through the walls, making the lights dim for an instant. Yara's voice broke the silence. "Another surge. The hunters passed close again. They are not attacking, but they want us to know they are near." "Why do they not strike?" Tomash asked, his voice uneasy. Captain Darren answered. "Because they do not see us as prey. Not yet." The thought was not comforting. If they were not prey, then they were either ignored, tolerated, or perhaps judged. The crew tried to rest, but sleep was restless. Dreams came sharp and heavy. Ravi dreamed of eyes in the dark, watching from behind glass. Lian dreamed of oceans with no bottom, where something vast moved under the surface. Myra dreamed of the signal, beating like a heart that was not human. When the crew met again at the command deck, their faces were tired. No one mentioned the dreams, but each knew the others had seen something in the night. The hunters showed themselves once more. 3 of them appeared at the edge of sight, black shapes outlined by faint starlight. They did not approach, only hovered in silence. The horizon scanners picked up no energy from them, yet their presence was clear. "They are waiting," Lian said. "Waiting for what?" Tomash asked. No one answered. Hours passed. Then the hunters moved again, gliding forward in formation. The horizon followed at a distance. Myra noticed the hunters were pressing toward a region where space itself bent strangely. The stars around that region seemed blurred, like reflections in rippling water. "Gravity distortion," Yara explained. "Something massive is hidden there. But I cannot detect what." The captain leaned forward. "Keep us steady. We will see what they are chasing." As they drew closer, the distortion grew stronger. The horizon shook gently, as if moving through invisible waves. Then Myra gasped. "Something else is here," she said. Her hands flew over the console. Not the hunters. Something older, something larger. On the screen, a faint outline formed. It was not a ship in the way humans built ships. It was vast, shaped like a broken crescent, drifting without light. Its surface was scarred, as though it had been through endless battles. The hunters circled it like wolves around a wounded beast. They moved silently, their jagged shape sliding across the crescent's surface. "What is that?" Tomash asked, his voice thin. "No record," Myra whispered. "It does not match anything in human archives. But it is alive. Not fully, but still alive." The crew stared in silence. The object was not only large, it felt ancient. Its scars looked older than human history. Whatever it was, it had survived countless ages. The hunters pressed closer. They moved with patience, their ship sliding into position. Then one of them released a thin beam of light. The beam touched the crescent shape, and the entire horizon shook. A sound echoed across their systems, not through the speakers but through the walls themselves. It was a low moan, deep and endless, as if space itself was crying. The crew covered their ears even though there was no sound in the air. The vibration passed through their bones. Tomasz fell to his knees. Leanne gripped her chair so tightly her hands bled. "Enough," Darren shouted. "Shut off external sensors." Yara slammed her hand on the controls, and the ship fell into sudden silence. The crew gasped for breath, their hearts racing. "They were hurting it," Myra said softly. "That thing, the crescent. They were testing it, forcing it to respond." "And it did," Darren replied. His face was pale, but his voice was steady. "Now we know. The hunters are not alone out here. They are chasing prey that has lived longer than we can imagine." The horizon floated in silence, watching the hunters circle their prize. The crew felt small, as if caught between forces beyond human scale. Yet they also felt something else. If these hunters feared the crescent, then humanity had stumbled onto a truth the galaxy itself tried to hide. Later, as the crew sat in the mess hall, Ravi finally spoke what they were all thinking. If the hunters find a way to kill that thing, they will not stop there. If they can bring down something that has lived since the birth of stars, then what chance will we have when they turn toward us? Darren looked at each of them in turn. His voice was quiet but firm. "That is why we must learn. Fear belongs to the weak, but knowledge belongs to the brave. The hunters believe they own the dark. We will prove that humanity does not bow to shadows." No one answered, but each crew member felt the weight of his words. They were caught between silent hunters and an ancient prey. They were only 6 humans in a small ship. Yet they carried the courage of a species that had always faced fear with fire in its heart. Outside, the hunters glided soundlessly, circling their target. Their movements were patient, controlled, and merciless. They were creatures of silence, predators that lived on fear. But on the horizon, 6 humans refused to break. The horizon drifted on the edge of the battlefield. The hunters circled the crescent shape in the dark, their sharp ships moving in slow patterns. They looked patient, but there was tension in their movements. The crew could sense it. The hunters were careful, as if the thing they surrounded was more dangerous than it appeared. Inside the horizon, the crew sat in silence. No one touched their meals. No one spoke unless it was necessary. Every eye was on the screens, watching the hunters move. "It looks broken," Tomasz finally said, pointing at the scarred crescent. "Maybe it is dying." Myra shook her head. "No, I have been studying its pulse. It is faint, but it is alive. Something inside it is still resisting." Captain Darren leaned forward. His voice was calm, but there was steel in it. "And the hunters know it. That is why they do not attack directly. They are waiting for the right moment." Leanne frowned. "Waiting for what? If it is wounded, why not finish it?" Ravi answered before Myra could. "Because they are afraid. Look at the distance they keep. They test it, but they do not dare to touch it with full force." The word afraid settled heavily in the room. If creatures as strange and powerful as the hunters feared the crescent, then it was no simple relic. Myra kept searching through the broken signals that still lingered in the void. She noticed something strange. The pulses from the crescent matched old myths recorded in Earth's earliest cultures. Ancient carvings and stories spoke of a sleeping serpent of the stars, a being that lived before men walked on the ground. Those stories had always been dismissed as imagination. But now Myra was not so sure. She showed her findings to Captain Darren. "These signals match the rhythm of those myths," she explained. "How could people from thousands of years ago dream of something we are seeing only now?" Darren studied the data in silence. Maybe they did not dream, he said. Maybe our ancestors saw the shadow of this thing long ago. Maybe it brushed past our world before, leaving fear in our bones. The crew listened with unease. Tomasz whispered, "Are you saying human fear comes from this thing? That we inherited it?" "No," Myra said firmly. "Not fear itself. But maybe the shape of fear. The unknown in the dark. The sense of being hunted when nothing is there. Maybe it was born from this." The thought made the ship feel colder. For the first time, the crew wondered if humanity had been touched by this battle long before they even knew space existed. Outside, the hunters changed formation. Two ships broke away from the circle and glided closer to the crescent. Their hulls shimmered faintly as if cloaked in energy. Slowly, they released thin streams of light, piercing the crescent's surface. The horizon shook again. A low moan filled the void, deeper and louder than before. The crew covered their ears, though they knew it was not sound. Their bones rattled as if the universe itself groaned. Then the moan stopped. The crescent did not move, but Myra gasped. "It sent out another signal," she said. "Hidden inside the moan. I caught it this time." The signal played on her console. It was not steady like the first one. It was broken, faint, but it had structure. Myra's eyes widened as she traced the rhythm. "It is not only alive," she whispered. "It is calling for help." Captain Darren stood tall. "To who?" "I do not know," Myra admitted. "But the hunters are trying to silence it. They want to stop it from reaching anyone." The crew looked at each other with unease. Humanity had always imagined itself alone, or at least new to the galaxy. But here was something far older, sending a cry into the void. And here were hunters desperate to make sure no one answered. Yara spoke from the system's deck. "Captain, if we stay longer, they will notice we are listening. They will turn on us." Darren nodded slowly. "I know. But if we leave now, we learn nothing more. If we stay, we risk becoming part of this hunt." The crew was silent. Each weighed fear against duty. At that moment, one of the hunters turned sharply. Its jagged frame pointed toward the horizon. Lights flickered across its hull for the first time, glowing faint red like embers. "They see us," Leanne said, her voice tight. The hunter moved closer, slowly at first, then faster. The horizon trembled as its sensors were locked by something cold and sharp. "Evasive maneuvers," Darren ordered. Leanne's hands flew across the controls. The horizon slid sideways, its engines flaring. The hunter followed, matching every move with deadly precision. "Shields up," Yara called. Energy spread across the horizon's surface, forming a thin barrier. The hunter fired a beam of pale light, but it faded before it struck, as if it only meant to test the human ship. "It is not attacking," Ravi said in disbelief. "It is measuring us." Darren's eyes narrowed. "They are deciding if we belong here." The hunter circled them once, then pulled back. Its lights dimmed, and it rejoined the others around the crescent. The message was clear. They could be destroyed, but they were being spared for now. The crew sat frozen, their hearts racing. Tomasz wiped sweat from his forehead. "We should go. We should go right now." But Myra shook her head. "If we leave, we take nothing home. We must learn why the hunters fear this thing. It may be the key to survival one day." Darren studied his crew. He saw fear in their eyes, but also determination. Humanity had always stepped forward into the unknown, even when danger loomed. That was what set them apart. He spoke firmly. "We stay. We watch. If the unseen prey calls for help, we must know who it is calling to. Because one day, it may call to us." Outside, the hunters circled the crescent in silence. The unseen prey waited, wounded but alive, its broken signals echoing across the void. And the horizon remained, a small human ship at the edge of fear, daring to look where others would not. The horizon floated in silence, its crew watching the hunters move around the crescent. The strange ships glided in perfect formation, never rushing, never breaking their rhythm. They circled like predators who had cornered something, waiting for the right time to strike. Inside the horizon, tension filled every corner. The crew spoke less now, their voices kept low, as though afraid the hunters could hear them through the walls. Every flicker of light on the screens, every hum of the engines, made their nerves tighten. Myra sat at her console, her eyes fixed on the faint signals from the crescent. "It is still calling," she whispered. "Not to us, but to someone. Its voice is weak, but it keeps sending." Ravi rubbed his face with tired hands. "And the hunters want to stop it? That is why they are here. They are not chasing prey. They are guarding against its call." Captain Darren stood behind them, arms folded. His eyes were fixed on the hunters. "Guarding or trapping," he said. "Either way, we are in the middle." Leanne turned from her navigation charts. "Captain, we should move. If they notice how much we are watching, they will turn on us. We barely escaped the last time they tested us." But Darren did not give the order to retreat. He looked at Myra instead. "If the crescent is calling, then someone may answer. I want to know who." The crew fell silent. The thought that something else, something powerful enough to answer, might appear in this empty dark was both terrifying and strange. Hours passed. The hunters continued their circling, beams of pale energy occasionally brushing the crescent's scarred surface. Each time, the horizon trembled as the wounded giant gave another faint cry. Then it happened. The hunters stopped moving. They froze in formation, their sharp frames facing outward. Faint lights appeared along their hulls, glowing like blood-red stars. The crew of the horizon leaned forward, hearts pounding. "They are preparing something," Yara whispered from the system's deck. On Myra's screen, data spiked. "They are sending energy into the void. Not at the crescent. Away from it. Outward." A chill passed through the crew. If the crescent was calling for help, the hunters were answering with a call of their own. Then the horizon systems shook violently. Alarms blared. Yara shouted over the noise. "They caught us. They locked onto our signal." The crew rushed to their stations. Leanne pulled the ship into a sharp turn, but the horizon moved as though caught in a net. The lights dimmed, and the engines strained. "It is a trap," Ravi shouted. "They wanted us to watch. Now they have us." Captain Darren kept his voice steady, though his jaw was tight. "Hold position. Do not fight yet. Let us see what they want." The hunters moved. Two of them broke from the circle and slid toward the horizon. Their ships loomed large on the screens, jagged and black against the void. They stopped only a short distance away, close enough that every detail of their strange surfaces showed. Suddenly, the horizon systems went dark. Lights flickered, consoles died, and only emergency power remained. The crew sat in stunned silence as every sound inside the ship faded, leaving only the faint hum of life support. "They shut us down," Yara said, her voice tight with fear. "They reached into our systems and took everything. I cannot move us. I cannot raise shields. We are blind." The crew looked to Darren. He stood still, his face calm even as the shadows of the hunter ships filled the deck with their presence. "Then they do not want us destroyed," he said. "Not yet." Myra gasped. Her console flickered once, even though power was gone. Strange symbols filled her screen, glowing faint white against the black. "It is them," she whispered. "They are speaking." The crew gathered around. The symbols shifted into shapes, then into pulses, then into words their systems could translate. A message appeared on the console, Simple but chilling. Silence. You do not belong here. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Tomasz swallowed hard. They do not want us to warn anyone. They want this hunt hidden. The symbols shifted again. Another message formed. Obey or be prey. For a long moment, the crew said nothing. The hunters had made their intention clear. Stay silent, or be hunted like the ancient crescent. Darren finally spoke. His voice was calm, but it carried the weight of his decision. We are human. We do not bow to threats. If they want us silent, it means the truth is too dangerous for them. That is why we must carry it home. The crew looked at him in shock. Ravi shook his head. Captain, if we resist, they will kill us. Maybe, Darren said. But if we submit, humanity will never know what waits at the edge. Knowledge is worth the risk. Myra looked back at the console. Her hands trembled as she typed a reply into the broken system. She kept it simple. We do not fear you. The symbols vanished. The console went dark again. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the hunters reacted. The two ships that had cornered the horizon began to glow, their jagged hulls bright with energy. A deep vibration filled the void, shaking the horizon from all sides. They are going to strike, Yara shouted. Not yet, Darren replied, his voice steady. They are testing us again. Hold. The horizon trembled under the pressure, but it did not break. The hunters stopped glowing. Their lights faded, and slowly, they moved back. The systems inside the horizon flickered to life. Power returned, consoles lit, and the engines roared again. The ship was free. The crew sat in stunned silence. The hunters had shown their power, but they had not destroyed them. Instead, they had left a warning. They wanted us to know our place, Myra whispered. Darren shook his head. No. They wanted us to choose. To obey, or to fight. And we chose. The horizon floated once more, alive but shaken. The hunters rejoined their circle around the crescent, their silent trap still in place. But now the crew of the horizon knew the truth. They had been marked. The hunters would not forget them. And yet, in the captain's eyes, there was no fear. Only resolve. Humanity had been tested, and it had refused to bow. The trap had been set, but it had not closed. Not yet. The horizon drifted in the dark, its crew shaken but alive. The hunters had pulled back, their ships once again forming the silent ring around the wounded crescent. Power had returned to the horizon, but the echo of the hunters' message still lingered in the crew's minds. Obey or be prey. Every word carried weight. It was not only a warning, but a challenge. Captain Darren stood at the center of the deck, his eyes locked on the crescent. We are not leaving, he said. His voice was calm but carried strength. If we run, we carry fear home. If we stay, we carry truth. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Some wanted to argue, but none spoke against him. The hunters had shown their strength, yet the horizon still floated. That survival itself felt like a question waiting to be answered. Ravi leaned forward, his voice quiet. Captain, they will not allow us to stay for long. Every second here draws more danger. Then let danger come, Darren said. We cannot hide from it forever. Myra's console flickered. The crescent sent another faint pulse, a weak call that reached across the void. It was softer than before, but still steady, like the heartbeat of a wounded creature refusing to give up. They are afraid of this, Myra whispered. The crescent keeps calling, no matter what they do. That is why they want silence. Tomasz frowned. If we amplify it, others could hear. We could turn its voice into a signal strong enough to cross systems. The crew looked at him in surprise. Amplifying the crescent's signal meant defiance. It meant going against the hunters openly. Yara's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her screens. If we do that, they will see it as a direct challenge. They will strike without hesitation. Captain Darren's face was unreadable. He weighed the risk in silence, then nodded. Then we give them no reason to hesitate. Humanity has never hidden from the unknown. If this crescent has something to tell, we will let it speak. The crew prepared. Lian adjusted the ship's position, keeping the horizon just outside the hunter's direct line of sight. Ravi rerouted power from secondary systems, feeding energy into the amplifiers. Yara worked with Myra to stabilize the weak signal, shaping it into a steady wave. The deck grew tense. Each crew member felt the weight of what they were about to do. They were not soldiers, yet they were standing against something far greater than themselves. Finally, Myra gave a nod. Signal ready. Darren gave the order. Send it. The horizon systems pulsed. Energy flowed into the crescent's call, carrying its faint cry outward. What had once been a whisper now grew louder, brighter, and wider. Across the screens, waves of energy spread into the dark, reaching far beyond the hunters' circle. The hunters reacted instantly. Their ships lit up in anger, beams of light stabbing outward. The circle broke, and the hunters turned their sharp frames toward the horizon. They are coming, Yara shouted. Hold course, Darren commanded. The hunters moved like blades, their speed frightening, their formation perfect. They did not drift, they cut through the void with purpose. One of them broke from the group, aiming directly at the horizon. Its hull glowed with burning light. It was not warning them this time. It was ready to strike. The horizon shook as its shields flared to life. Yara pushed the systems to their limit. Shields holding, but they cannot last. The hunter ship loomed closer, preparing a beam that could tear the horizon apart. Lian, evasive pattern, Darren ordered. The horizon spun sharply, engines roaring. The hunter's beam cut through the space they had just left, leaving a trail of destruction where the horizon would have been. The crew held their breath. The hunters were too fast, too precise. Yet the horizon danced between them, its crew working as one. Every movement was fueled not by fear, but by determination. Still, the hunters pressed harder. Two more ships broke from the circle, their weapons glowing. They will overwhelm us, Ravi said. Sweat ran down his brow. Not if we fight, Darren replied. His voice carried steel. Turn their trap against them. Myra's eyes widened. The crescent. Its surface still reacts when struck. If we can redirect their fire toward it, maybe it will trigger something. It was a dangerous plan. The crescent was wounded, but still alive with strange power. Do it, Darren said without hesitation. Lian steered the horizon with sharp turns, dragging the hunters into new lines of attack. Twice, their beams missed the ship by narrow margins. On the third pass, their fire struck the crescent. The result was immediate. The crescent glowed, light rippling across its cracked surface. A soundless wave of energy spread outward, shaking both the hunters and the horizon. Myra gasped. It answered. The hunters pulled back for the first time, their formation broken. Their ships flickered with unstable light as they struggled against the energy wave. The horizon shook, but Yara kept the systems balanced. We are holding. Ravi's face lit with hope. The crescent is stronger than them. That is why they fear it. But Darren did not relax. He saw the hunters regrouping, their jagged frames reforming into a line. They had been shaken, but not defeated. They will return with greater force, Darren said. We must finish what we started before they recover. Myra's console glowed with stronger signals now. The crescent was not whispering anymore. With each strike, its voice grew clearer, like an ancient song rising from deep within the void. It is speaking to someone, she said. Not us, but someone far away. We are only the bridge. The crew realized the truth. Their fight was not only survival. They were helping the Crescent deliver its final message, a call meant to reach powers unknown. The hunters knew it too. That was why they would not stop. One of the hunters surged forward, brighter than the rest. Its body split apart, forming sharp arms that pointed toward the horizon. It is preparing to sacrifice itself, Yara shouted. It will destroy us even if it dies. Then we must stand, Darren said firmly. His voice did not tremble. They want us silent. We will not be silent. The horizon turned to meet the hunter head-on. Its crew braced for impact, their eyes set with determination. This was not just survival anymore. It was defiance. Humanity had been tested, and now it would answer with courage. The void trembled with the clash. The hunters burned with fury. The crescent glowed with rising strength. And in the center of it all, the horizon stood unbroken, a single fragile ship daring to fight where no other dared. The choice had been made. Humanity had chosen defiance. And the hunters would never forget. The horizon stood against the storm. The hunters circled closer, their sharp ships glowing with deadly light. One of them had broken formation, preparing to sacrifice itself in a burning strike meant to tear the horizon apart. Inside the ship, silence filled the deck except for the hum of systems under strain. The crew did not flinch. They had already chosen their path. Captain Darren stood tall at the command post. His voice was steady. Hold course. We do not run. We do not bow. The attacking hunter charged, its hull glowing brighter, splitting open like a blade ready to cut through steel. Yara shouted from her station. Impact in 10 seconds. Lian gripped the controls, waiting for the right moment. Sweat ran down his forehead, but his hands did not shake. Ravi stood ready with the power relays, his eyes locked on the energy readouts. Myra focused on the crescent, her hands dancing across the console as she monitored the signals rising from its surface. The hunter closed in. The horizon braced. At the last moment, Darren gave the order. Turn, now. Lian spun the ship sharply. The hunter's beam missed, but not by much. The horizon's shields flickered and groaned, their edges burning as the ship rolled through the void. The hunter overshot, caught in its own momentum. But instead of retreating, the hunter twisted back, preparing a second charge. Its body glowed so fiercely it seemed ready to burn itself out. They will keep throwing themselves at us until we are gone, Yara said, her voice tight. No, Myra said softly. Her eyes widened as she looked at her console. They are afraid. The crescent is waking. On the screen, the crescent's surface glowed brighter than before. Cracks of light ran across its broken shell. Waves of energy pulsed outward, steady and strong. It was no longer a faint cry. It was a rising song. The hunters shifted uneasily. Their perfect formation wavered for the first time. They had faced many prey before, but now the prey was fighting back with something they could not silence. The horizon's amplifiers surged as Ravi poured more power into them. Signal strength rising. It is spreading across multiple bands. Not just one language, but many. Myra's voice shook with awe. It is not only calling. It is telling a story. The crew listened as the crescent's signal flowed through their systems. At first it was patterns of sound, like a song with no words. Then images appeared on the screens, shapes of light and shadow forming fragments of memory. They saw stars falling into darkness. They saw fleets standing against endless waves of hunters. They saw beings who had fought, lost, and still left behind one last cry of warning and hope. It is the voice of a people, Myra whispered. They were hunted, but they wanted their story to live. The horizon carried that story now, and the hunters knew it. The nearest hunter lunged again, desperate to strike before the message could spread. Its body tore forward with reckless speed. Direct hit incoming. Yara shouted. But before the hunter reached them, the crescent answered. A wave of brilliant energy erupted from its surface, striking the hunter with raw force. The ship twisted violently, its glowing body breaking apart under the blast. Shards of burning metal scattered into the void, fading into dust. The horizon shook from the wave, but it held. The crew stared in stunned silence. "They can be destroyed," Tomash whispered. Ravi looked at the wreckage. "They are not invincible." The hunters around the crescent froze. Their formation broke into scattered lines. For the first time, the predators hesitated. But the danger was not over. More hunters closed in from the shadows beyond, answering the call of their fallen. Their numbers grew. The void filled with sharp frames glowing with threat. "There are too many," Yara said, her hands trembling. "We cannot fight them all." "We do not need to," Darren replied. His eyes stayed on the glowing crescent. "We only need to let the voice finish." The crew worked as one. Lian kept the horizon moving between the hunters, never still, always shifting. Yara kept the shields alive, even as the ship shook with near misses. Ravi poured power into the amplifiers until the deck lights flickered and dimmed. Myra held the signal steady, guiding it as the crescent poured its memory into the stars. The hunters pressed harder. Their beams tore past the horizon, burning empty space. One struck the edge of the shields, shaking the ship to its core. "Shields failing!" Yara cried. "Hold them," Darren said firmly. "One moment longer." The crescent's light grew stronger, its surface glowing like a star. The song rose higher, filling the horizon with warmth that cut through the fear. The hunters closed in, but they no longer seemed certain. The prey had become the messenger of something greater. Finally, the signal peaked. The crescent released its final wave of energy, stronger than all before. It surged outward, carrying the story of its fallen people into the endless dark. Every screen lit up with the final image, a symbol of light, a mark that seemed both strange and familiar. A promise that their story would live on. Then the crescent went silent. Its glow faded. The crackled shell dimmed, its energy spent. The hunters froze. They had failed. The message had been sent. The prey had defied them and carried the voice of the lost beyond their reach. One by one, the hunters pulled back. Their sharp ships faded into the shadows, vanishing as quickly as they had appeared. The horizon drifted quietly, the silence heavy after the storm. The crew sat in stillness, their bodies weary, their hearts racing. "We made it," Ravi said, almost in disbelief. "No," Darren said softly. His eyes remained on the empty crescent. "We carried it. That is greater than survival." Myra leaned back in her chair, her voice trembling. "Captain, that message went far. Someone, somewhere, will hear it. We are not alone anymore." Tomash nodded slowly. "And the hunters know it?" The horizon floated at the edge of fear, but it was no longer the same fragile ship that had entered the void. It had faced predators older and stronger than them, and yet it had refused to bow. Humanity had shown defiance. Humanity had carried the voice of the fallen. And now the hunters would never forget. Darren turned to his crew. His voice was calm, but filled with pride. "We came as explorers. We leave as messengers. Remember this day, for it will echo long after us." The horizon adjusted its course, leaving the silent crescent behind. Ahead stretched the vast unknown, darker and more dangerous than ever, yet filled with new hope. The hunters still waited somewhere in the shadows. But now humanity knew the truth. Fear could be faced. The unknown could be defied. And even in the coldest dark, voices could rise and carry beyond the reach of silence. The horizon sailed forward. The journey was far from over. But they were no longer alone.